Hey guys, Forrest Proctor here. You're watching Assume Your Power. I'm coming to you in a little bit different format today because I'm trying out, filming in my car, and I don't have my good camera that you're used to seeing now hidden in my car. This is just my cell phone. So if this works, we'll post the video. If it doesn't, well then you'll never see this. It doesn't matter. But I want to talk today a little bit about how I have been attracting things into my life, pretty bizarre things into my life, for a long time, and then I'm now realizing it in hindsight, and I have a really cool, well, many stories, but one that is really close to my heart involving Queens of the Stone Age, the famous rock band Sponser. We're always attracting things, right? Whether you like it or know it or not. That's why when you see a lot of people that are kind of in a loop of misery, they're creating that for themselves because that's what they believe their life is all about. Therefore, that's what life keeps giving them. And it's really sad, actually, because I know I've said it on this channel before, it's kind of why I started the channel, because I feel like I never knew this information. That I was attracting all of the good and the bad into my life, and I actually feel kind of guilty knowing all this and other people not knowing it. So I wanted to at least make an effort for people to realize this information. That way they can start shaping their life how they want it to be. But that being said, when I look back at my life, every single thing that has ever happened to me or come into my life, I have created. Now, I have always been fortunate enough to be a very positive person, very optimistic, and also seeing the world as a big playground where there was really no rules. Like, I always felt like I could have access to anyone I wanted if I just tried hard enough. And I always saw the world as kind of small, and we'll get into a lot of that going forward in this video, and how it really is teeny tiny, and how I have manifested before knowing about the law of attraction. Very bizarre interactions and money and all kinds of stuff into my life. But yeah, growing up, I always had this mindset of you can do whatever you want. Part of that was like the American dream instilled into me. I grew up in rural Mississippi, where we don't have like a lot of liberal thinking, and nothing against people who are considering themselves liberal, but in the traditional sense, people who are super liberal you don't see a lot of positivity around that community, in my opinion. It's a lot of like, this is bad, that is bad, victimization type attitude. So I didn't grow up in that environment. I grew up more in like a, you want to be an astronaut, you want to be a doctor, you can do it. You want to be a singer, you can do it. Like, basically it was like, whatever you want to do, you can do. So there was that, but then there was also my grandmother, who you'll hear me quote a lot on this channel. She's just one of the most incredible people, in my opinion, has ever lived. She's my best friend. She did so many things as a young woman that really were ahead of her time. She had a radio show when she was like 14 years old. She convinced people at the radio station to let her host a radio show. And for a little girl, like in the, late 60s, that was kind of like, what? She was the first person to play the Beatles in her town. She was the first woman president of a Rotary Club. She's very involved in her community. I mean, there are not statues, but there are plaques all over my town with her name on it, where she donated things and was a part of different developments, and just one of those people. And it wasn't just her, it was her mother as well, which I think is where she got it. They were both just like that. And she was my best friend, or she is my best friend. She's still with us, but she's my best friend, and she has always just been such a positive light in my life, and basically always told me that there are no limits. And come to find out later in life, she knew about all this law of attraction stuff and knew about it and studied it, and not so much the law of attraction, but more of just like positive thinking and positive reinforcement. So that's where I think I get the natural side of this. But now that I'm diving deep into the science of it, it's amplified. But anyways, getting into some of the weird and bizarre stuff that I've manifested, and kind of going into the Queens of Stone Age thing. Growing up, I played in multiple rock bands. In fact, if you want to search on YouTube, the Tomfooleries band, just type in Tomfooleries, Hattiesburg, Mississippi, or Deaf and Poor, like deaf, can't hear, and poor, no money, with an ampersand in the middle. You can find a lot of our music. And if you just search my name, Forrest Proctor, on any of your streaming platforms, all of that will come up, just because I've archived my music over the years. And even though I'm not as active as I once was, like it was my full-time gig at one point, I still try to make sure my music's out there, because I still have plans to make big records, honestly. As bizarre as that sounds to myself, I still have plans to do that. But anyway, I grew up playing in bands, and had a lot of different musical influences really across the spectrum. But I think my favorite band and the most influential on me was Queens of the Stone Age, and I don't really know why. Maybe it was just their obscurity, the badassness of Josh Homme and his riffs and his lyrics, and I don't know. And when I found Queens of the Stone Age, the way I actually discovered them was through Guitar Hero. They had a track on, I think it was Guitar Hero 2 or 3. It was No One Knows, and then they had a bonus track, which I think was 3s and 7s, on that game. And I just thought, wow, this is like the coolest band I've ever heard. And from then on out, like I was pretty much obsessed with their sound and their music, and never seen them live, unfortunately. But I'm getting into where me and Queens of the Stone Age have an actual real life connection. So anyways, going through college and through my early 20s, I was just really into Queens of the Stone Age, and it really did influence my writing, especially with my band Deaf and Poor. If you go to iTunes or Spotify and search my name, you'll see 2 albums. One is it's like a black album, and the other one's got a dinosaur on it. Anyway, those are the Deaf and Poor albums, and they're 2 EPs, 5 songs apiece. And there were more songs. It was just we were spitting those out kind of quickly for these tours that we were booking, and we really could have combined the 2 because we put them out like 4 or 5 months apart. But those are the 2 EPs, 10 songs in total. They really encompass my influence and the sound of Queens of the Stone Age. And it's not like I was copying them. It's just you can hear elements of that. There's also elements of the Foo Fighters in there, and Led Zeppelin, and even, weirdly enough, even John Mayer, just because I like that soft falsetto-ness of his voice. And I like Josh Homme's falsetto-ness and the way he'll take really heavy music and put soft vocals to them. But yeah, that you can find all that there. And so during that time, I was recording. We were putting out about an album a year, with the exception of those 2. Between my 2 bands and my solo stuff, we were putting out about an album a year. And if you go to forrestproctor.bandcamp.com, I think there's like 11 albums that I had put out, self-published during that time. And I started shooting videos, which is how I started my video production company, Epic Film and Photography, through music. My band, the Tomfooleries, I just had this inspiration. I had always kind of shot videos, but I had this inspiration to shoot us a music video for a song called Tumble in the Winds of Change. Most of the band members just called it Tumble, and I think we might have just went with Tumble on the album, but it's called Tumbles in the Winds of Change. And we recorded that music video and put it out. And then I started getting like an influx of messages through Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, like, hey, who made this video? Can you give me their contact? How much did they charge you? And a light bulb in my head went off. I said, oh, okay, I can charge people to make these music videos. And I was in the music industry, in the scene in Hattiesburg and Mobile, so I had a lot of musical friends and started making music videos. Well, music videos are fine and dandy, but musicians don't actually have a lot of money. So I really liked making videos, and I said, oh man, music's great, but on average you make about $50 to $150 a night, 150 being like the good nights, and you're only working Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So it's really tough, man. It is tough to make a full-time living as a musician, unless of course you find an avenue where you can make money and you have people backing you and finances and all that. But just as like hey, trying to bootstrap it, make it yourself a musician, it's really tough. So I found that video was fun, almost as fulfilling. I was still making art, and I could mix the two, meld the two. And so I started looking online for like different video jobs, and I always knew news stations were a thing. So I went and shot a few commercials for a news station that wasn't me. And I just started kind of diving into what kind of jobs are out there. At this point, I had quit college just because it just was not for me, and I played soccer in college. So once soccer was done, I was kind of checked out there. But yeah, started looking for video jobs and came across something on Craigslist that was at a military base in Hattiesburg, Camp Shelby actually, that said looking for hybrid video shooter / editor, which is exactly what I did. And so I contacted the company. Next thing you know, I've got an interview at the Hampton Inn right by Outback in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. I'll never forget, I didn't really have any nice clothes. It's kind of a rocker, so I was like, oh, I don't need to wear like my tight Levi's and a dirty white t-shirt, so I went to Goodwill and bought some clothes that didn't fit, and I kind of just made it work for the interview. But I remember bringing my MacBook that had like the 10 videos I had shot at that point. I hadn't done a lot. I'd done like a liquor store commercial, some of the music videos I had done, and then like some mock commercials that I had made. I remember bringing that, sitting down with a guy named Bill Cox, who ended up, he's gonna kind of pop back up in this story a lot, because he ended up being my boss for almost 6 years after that. But sat down, and I remember a guy walking out beforehand. He was kind of not super well dressed, not super. I could kind of tell his hygiene wasn't all there. And he walked out. I walked in. I said, "Hey, how you doing? I brought my laptop, to show you my work if you're interested in seeing that." And he said, "No, I don't want to see it." He was also an ex-Marine, so he kind of had like this sharp edge to him. But I really loved Bill. But he said, "No, I don't want to see it." He talked to me for about 5 minutes, and then he said, "You're the only person who came in here dressed nice, and you're the only person who came in here willing and ready to show your work. So if you want the job, it is yours." This other guy smelled bad. Everybody else who came in here was stoned, I'm pretty sure. So I got the job right there on the spot, and I started in 3 days. So fast forward a little bit, 3 days, started working at Camp Shelby as a video shooter / editor, and oh boy, did I not realize what I was getting myself into. I'm not going to mention the company that I was working for, because they are a very large technology company that makes a lot of crazy technology that you know about, and some of it you don't. And when you sign NDAs, you can't really talk about, that kind of stuff. But anyways, so I was at Camp Shelby videoing freaking explosions and crazy top secret tests and aircraft, and I had a security clearance, and I was 20. Let's see, my daughter was just born. I was 21 years old. Never been in the military, never really been in that structured environment. I played in rock bands, and all of a sudden I am driving a government vehicle going around Camp Shelby videoing all kinds of classified and unclassified events. So that was pretty crazy. All the meanwhile, I'm still playing in my 2 bands. In fact, a lot of my friends at that company, they were all from out of town, all from all over the country, working there, different engineers, RF people, actually very little video people. I was kind of, me and one other guy were the video leg of the company. Everybody else was in like technology, engineering, software engineering, all that kind of stuff, because they were working on this, unclassified technology, and we were filming it. But they would come out to my shows, and they became some of my best friends to this day. Now, fast forward the next 6 years, I would work with that company on and off, because they really did a lot of this stuff in the warmer months, and then they would take a break and go back to California for development. So basically they develop in a lab or in a facility in California. In the summers they would go to all these military bases all over the country and test their products, and I would travel with them to test their products. And the music never stopped, to quote the Grateful Dead, the music never stopped during this time, and I continued to believe that I was gonna go somewhere with it. And if I'd have known about the law of attraction at the time, I would probably be, just to be honest, you can do whatever you want and you can create the reality you want. We know that. I would probably be touring with Arctic Monkeys and Queens of the Stone Age or something like that. Not to jump out and say I'm like the best musician of all time, but even when I go back and listen to my music, I think to myself, wow, if I would have just had the right knowledge and the right people to plug me into that industry, I mean, me and my friends, we would have been gone. And I had multiple people tell us that, at the time. They said, you were either born in the wrong time or you got to find a manager because you sound so good. I actually had a bar owner in Houston tell us, we played at a really famous place called Acadia, and the Foo Fighters had just played there. And they were like, y'all were one of the tightest bands we've ever heard here, including, some of those big bands. So, I'm just putting that out there because if I'd had the knowledge, things would probably be a lot different right now. And I'm not complaining. I love my life. And I still have big plans with music. And I can make any plans I want. With the law of attraction, you can create the reality you want. It's just be careful what you wish for, right? So right now, I'm trying to do some other things in the cinema space, but I still have a key that I'm going to turn with the music that's coming. So just stay tuned for that. But anyway, so the next 6 years, I traveled with that company all over the country to film different military exercises, different military technologies. And it was a lot of fun. And the music never stopped. And my love for Queens of the Stone Age never stopped. In fact, they would come out with albums year after year. I would put out records year after year, kind of chasing the tail of Queens of the Stone Age. They were a big band, signed by a big label. I was a nobody, just playing music because I love it. But I remember one summer I got a call, and this is probably the peak, in everything, everybody kind of peaks, right? But this is kind of the peak of my musical ability. Like, this is when I was at my best. And I got a call, and the guy, Bill Cox, said, hey, I want you to come work with us on a really, really special project out in California. And I said, I'm really busy right now, man. Like, I got a lot of stuff going on. My business is popping off. He said, okay, but this is once in a lifetime. It's in Joshua Tree, California. And when I heard Joshua Tree, I was like, oh, I've heard of that. It's like a really cool place in the desert. But I didn't know much about it. And as much as I love Queens of the Stone Age, I did not know Queens of the Stone Age, or Josh Homme in particular, was from that 29 Palms, Palm Springs, Joshua Tree area. I didn't know it. I just loved their music. I wasn't like so deep into, I wasn't necessarily a fan. I was a musical fan, right? So I took the job and I flew out to California, and I was there for over 90 days. So I was there for a quarter of the year working. And while I was there, I really, really dove into my music. And being somewhere where I didn't have any musical equipment, okay? I didn't have any gigs lined up. I didn't have a band. It was just me. And the things that I did there are honestly quite unbelievable when I look back at it. So I'm in Joshua Tree and I'm itching to play music. And I start looking into stuff and I'm like, okay, they've got some open mics around. Maybe I can jump in on one of these open mics and, borrow a guitar and just get up there and play. Now, what I end up doing is I was like, I need to rehearse a little bit because I want to practice some of my songs, practice some songs before I go to these open mics. I ended up going to a pawn shop and buying like a $100 guitar, something that would kind of get me by in my hotel room and practicing some stuff. And then fast forward just a little bit, found out about an open mic out in Death Valley. So I went out there and it was just truly magical. If you've never been to Joshua Tree or Pioneer Town or 29 Palms, those areas, there's just something different. Especially me being from Mississippi, it was kind of a culture shock. That when I flew into that place, I came in at night and had somebody pick me up and take me to my hotel, so I couldn't see anything. So I'll never forget the morning I woke up and walked outside of my hotel room, and it was like nothing but desert, boulders, Joshua trees, cacti, the tumbleweeds. I mean, the whole shebang. Like, when you think about a desert, that's what it was when I woke up, and I honestly couldn't believe it. I'm pulling over to get some coffee, so just hang with me for a minute. I do have a point to this story. So, I find some open mics, I practice on my guitar, and then I go to the open mic without a guitar because this guitar I had was crap, it didn't plug in. Actually, I might have taken it just in case. But long story short, I go to this first open mic in Death Valley, and it's just magical. I play, and I'm actually really into outlaw country too, so I was doing like a lot of outlaw country because it lends itself more to just playing the guitar rather than having a band and needing like a lot of distortion. And yeah, so I jam out. I'm actually gonna move because there's like people pulling in. I don't want people looking at me. I don't know. It's weird already recording yourself on camera. Then you got all kind of people looking at you. But I jam out. I play a few songs, and you know, these people in California aren't used to like the blues and aren't used to country accents, and people just really took to me out there. Like, they really did. They were like, hey, if you ever need a guitar, please let us know. And then I got invited to several other open mics. I got invited to several house parties where they were having bands and stuff. And I actually got invited to Dick Dale's house to play. If you don't know who Dick Dale is, he's famous. He's like the father of surf rock. Miserala. If you've ever seen a Quentin Tarantino movie, you've heard a Dick Dale song. But yeah, so people really took to me out there and fostered me, honestly. And this one guy, Mike Perez, I need to get in contact with him because he was not doing so well in his health. Older guy, really old guy, invited me back to his house and said, hey, I've got a bunch of guitars. If you need one while you're here, you can always take it and just give it back before you get back to Mississippi. So I went to Mike's house, and he had this insane house of guitars and musical instruments, and he lived alone, and he was in his 70s, and he let me take this Taylor guitar for the whole stint of my stay there. And so I'm very grateful to Mike Perez for that. But as time went on, you know, I was working during the day filming for the military, and then at night there was a few guys that I worked with that were musicians, so we kind of formed what we called a band, but we didn't have anywhere to practice, we didn't have any equipment. And so Mike Perez really facilitated that. He let us come to his house and practice and play, and it really gave us something to do out there that was constructive and productive, I think. Because any job where you're out on the road, people just want to, you know, they're off work, they want to go drink, they want to go hear some music. Well, we were just focused on our job, and then we were focused on, you know, playing music. So I think it really helped me in that way too. But while we were there, a really, really good friend of mine, Jason Silvis, who knew my love for the Queens of the Stone Age, he said, so are you going to go check out Josh Homme's studio? And I was like, what are you talking about? He said, you know, Josh Homme's from here, right? And I almost went into tears. I was like, are you serious? And it made so much sense because of the energy that I felt there and kind of the inspiration I was getting to write my music. It just made so much sense. And you know, I'm going to post a link to a short film that we made out there called Lost in the Desert that was like kind of about us playing music out there for those 90 days. But yeah, it's just so weird how small of a world it is, because I truly believe my love for Queens of the Stone Age and my love for music cultivated all of the strings that were needed to pull and all of the roads that were needed to take to get me to that place. And I ended up going to Josh Homme's studio. And the way we did it, me and Jason, we actually went and got some Indian food, and then we Googled the spot where they recorded, you know, the first couple albums of Queens of the Stone Age and a lot of Caius records. And we Googled it, and it happened to be right behind the place where we were eating. And so we just drove there. When we got there, the sun was going down. There was an older man there who, you know, came up and asked if we needed some help, and we were like, hey, it's my friend Forrest. He really loves Queens of Stone Age, and you know, we traveled. He told him we traveled here just to see this place, and a guy ends up letting us, you know, not really go all the way in, but lets us come up to the house. It's actually an old house. Lets us look in and check it out, and in that moment, it was just like, wow. This is a small world, man. And Josh Homme and me are kind of the same guy in a way, because he was just a kid at one time who was jamming on the guitar and just never told himself that he couldn't do what he wanted to do. And that's kind of how I've always been. Now, did we end up taking the exact same route? He's a little bit older than me. You know, like my story is not yet finished, and neither is his. You know, he's got a lot of bag of tricks up his sleeve. He's produced a lot of records and worked on films and done all kind of stuff. So I'm just telling you guys this to tell you that a lot of times you focus in on something so hard, and then all of a sudden you find yourself at the doorstep of it. And then fast forward a little further towards those 90 days, I ended up meeting this guy, Nicholas, who's from Norway, who's also a big Queens of Stone Age fan and a drummer. We end up getting together at Mike Perez's house and learning a bunch of Queens of Stone Age. And then we went around and played all over the place. We played Pioneer Town several times. I have a really cool photo that the owner gave me of me and Paul McCartney playing in the exact same spot. So that was pretty cool. We would play Joshua Tree Saloon every Tuesday and Thursday night. Played out in Death Valley. We played several different little house shows that people were putting on. You know, we played all over the place, and I think just because of the polarization of who I am and the fact that I wasn't from there, and they were like, wow, you're like one of the best musicians we've ever heard. Are you from here? I'm like, no, I'm from Mississippi. And they were like, oh, it makes sense. That's the birthplace of music. And it really took off out there, and I could feel the energy of that. And it really, like, what are the chances, right, of me being so enthralled with that sound and that music and the universe just taking me there? The chances are so slim that it can only be magnetism, like, in my opinion. So, and I have a bunch of more stories like that I'll get into on a different video, but this one is like my Queens of the Stone Age connection. And I ended up meeting a lot of people out there who are involved and knew Josh Homme and knew some of the members from KS, and really remember them watching them and coming up. And actually, Joshua Tree is kind of a hot spot for celebrities to come out and get away from LA. And so I ended up meeting a lot of different people, like the lead producer for American Horror Story. He really took a liking to me, and if I can dig up a picture of me and him, I'll post it. But you know, he saw me play at Joshua Tree Saloon, and then he said, where are you going to play again? I said, I'm playing in Death Valley a couple of nights from now. They have an open mic, and he ended up bringing all his friends out there. And yeah, I met some really crazy people. I met the drummer for Dick Dale, like I mentioned before. You know, I got to play on the same stage as Joshua Homme, as Paul McCartney, and Ice Cube, which is kind of rare because, you know, I got in with these different people, and they invited me to play, and they were like, listen, nobody gets to play on this stage. It's like a very, you know, I don't want to say sacred, but it's like, we're very picky about who plays here. And that was Pioneer Town. And the owner took a really good liking to me, and we ended up, I ended up jamming and playing several nights with a band there. And it was just a lot of fun. And you know, none of this is because I'm like the best musician of all time or I'm something special. It really is just magnetism and the law of attraction. Like, I focused in so hard on music that, and I believe that it was a part of me, and my love for that certain sound, that desert rock sound, the universe just took me there. And it took me there by means that I didn't expect, and nobody really would expect. You know, it wasn't music that took me there. It was a military-based video production job. So, yeah, life is all about magnetism, attracting things into your life. So stay positive. If you love something, stick with it. And I still have big plans and aspirations for music. And I'm just getting to a place where I want to build a studio on my property. And, you know, if you love something, don't let it be your job. So that's my main thing. It's like, I want to make sure that I'm doing music because I love it, and I get paid fairly well through all the video production that I do. So I kind of view that as my job, and then the music is going to be, you know, supplementing my love for expressing myself. And of course, I want to teach my kids to do that. So I think it's going to be healthy to have like a studio set up at our home. So yeah, that's my story with Queens of the Stone Age and how I ended up in the desert for 90 days playing music. If you look into the link in the description, you can watch that short film that me and my friend Troy Widger made. and Jason Silvis as well, and throw credit out there to Justin Hayes, who shot a lot of it. And yeah, that was, I was trying to think of anybody else who helped shoot some of that. But you can watch that and kind of get an idea of what went down there in the desert. It was truly magical. And if you go to iTunes or Spotify and type in Desert Magic by Forrest Proctor, that's kind of like the marquee song that I wrote while I was out there. It kind of encompasses all of the energy that was there. And yeah, I'm so grateful for the experience, and I continue to attract these types of things into my life. And I've got some other stories with like Donald Trump that I will post on this one day. But anyway, stay beautiful, stay magnetized, and never ever forget to assume your power. Peace.